did as a parent that changed me at my core. And I think it's the one thing that sort of straightened me up from, I wasn't going down a bad path, but I was just, like I said, just like the kid that was just doing this stuff. And what I did for a while, again, as a smoker, she was giving me, here's the other thing. She was giving me, now I think it's crazy, like $10 a day to go to school. $5 for lunch and $5 for my 20 pack of cigarettes. She was giving me $10 a day. And then on the weekend, I would, oh, Mom, I need to go to the pool hall. And I get another 20. So, but now I look at it, I'm like, holy crap. Like back then, this is in the early 90s. She was giving me like $300 or $400 a month. That's like $5,000 a year. If when you get out and you're working, you're allowed a basic income of $6,000 without being taxed. I was getting almost that for doing nothing. And here's the thing. Every now and then I felt like I needed more. So here's what I started doing, which is terrible. Is I would wait until it was late at night, and I knew that she always had $20 bills in her purse, in her top of her wallet. So I was starting to zip open her purse and take a $20 bill. And I got away with it for probably a month. And then one day I felt a hand on my hand in the middle of the night, and it was her boyfriend, the guy that I didn't get along with anyway. And anyway, so she got up, and the bottom line is she said, I'm not going to ground you. I just know that I can never trust you again. And then she went back to sleep. And
Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Corey Poirier. He's a multiple-time TEDx and sought-after keynote speaker. He has spoken on MoMondays and PMX stages, has shared the bill with everyone from John C. Maxwell to Deepak Chopra to Stephen MR Covey to General Hillier, and has presented to hundreds of thousands of attendees since he began his speaking journey. He's a host of the top-rated Conversations with Passion radio show, For the Love of Speaking show, and the founder of the speaking program. He has been featured in multiple TV specials, and he has been featured on CBS, CTV, NBC, ABC, and is one of the few leaders featured twice on a popular Entrepreneur on Fire show. Corey is also a father of two, and he grew up in a single-parent home, and this is why he's here today to share his story with us. Welcome, Corey. It is a pleasure to have you.
thank you so much. I am super excited and stoked to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So please share with us, you were growing up, did you have any siblings or you were an only child?
I was only child.
All right. So what was it like? What was the experience like of being in a single parent home?
Well, and I'll even add to that, my mother's an only child. So both of
Oh,
us were kind of only children.
okay.
Excuse me. My father, who was in my life till about age 9, was he had sisters. So he had a bigger family than us, like 6 people. But overall, I mean, I think there was 2 sides to it. On one side, we didn't, the home life, it was, I very much had the place to myself, if you want to say it that way. Like it wasn't very inside the house. It wasn't very busy because when you don't have siblings, there's none of that running around, play fighting, all that stuff. I had a lot of friends, but we have 2 kids, so I get to see the difference now. But for me, it was very much like I kind of just got to do my own thing. And truly, like, if I didn't want to be around people, I could just go off and go somewhere else. Whereas I see now with 2 kids at home, whenever one goes off, the other one's like, oh, where's he at? And then goes and bugs them. So I got to experience a different side than I see now that siblings do. But the other side is early on in my life, I was spoiled, like I got kind of whatever I wanted.
Mhm.
And that continued until basically until I was age 16. Then I got my first job, and I got a cheap little $400 car that my grandfather purposely co-signed for so that I would build some credit versus me just buying it. And I got this first car at age 16, first job at age 16. And my mom said, well, good luck in the world. So I was spoiled until 16. And then it was like, you're on your own. It was just a cut right off. And so I mean, I got more stuff than most of my friends. I probably got more attention in some ways because it was only me. And And then I was really close with my grandparents, again, because probably I was their only grandchild. So I think what I noticed about it is I got more attention, and I got more, more gifts and whatever you want to call it, like more toys and stuff like that than most of my friends. But at the same time, uh, I didn't have a sibling to fight with, and I didn't create a whole lot of, so what I can say is I didn't create a whole lot of havoc at home either.
Okay.
Meaning, like, I think when a parent has 4 or 5 kids, whole lot more stuff goes down than what was happening in my house. Like, it was just like I was the only kid, so I just had to be in a good mood, and everything went flowed really nicely.
Awesome. Sounds fun.
It was good. Like I said, now though, looking back, there's parts of me that wish I had a sibling.
Mm.
Like, wish I would have had a sibling, because I see people that have a sibling, that connection they have when they get older, and that bond that you just don't ever have, and don't even really honestly know fully what it feels like when you don't have a sibling. Like, my common law wife has a brother,
Mhm.
and I often say, like, I wish I had that. I wish I had that experience. So I think it's like everything though. The grass is always greener. So I didn't have that. So I wish I had it. She says sometimes, growing up, it was really challenging because of this, this, and this. So in some ways, she probably was like at that age, especially, I wish I didn't have a sibling. So I think it's, you always wish for the thing you don't have in a lot of ways.
Right, right, right. What were some of, I call it, what were some of the experiences? Did you have any challenges growing up in a single parent home, or everything was great?
I mean, I definitely wouldn't say it was great. My father and mother got divorced when I was around 9 or 10. And up until that point, my father was the world. Like, I just thought he was the best thing since sliced bread type thing. And I thought he was like, he was a rock star to me. Like, I remember one time he came home and I had faked sick. And my mother said, well, the furthest you can go outside is you can stay on the step, but you can't go in the yard with your friends or anything like that. And my father came home and said, that's nonsense. He said, go on out and play. And he said, I'll deal with her, is how he said it. And but then he said, at the bottom of the steps is a motor go-kart I bought you. Like, so a little go-kart you drive around the yard. And we were kind of somewhat in the city, so it was not even practical to have it there. But I just thought, like, he's a rock star. He comes home from work, brings me a motor go-kart, tells me I don't have to stay on the step. Like, so I viewed him in a certain way. And then when they split up, I blamed her because I didn't know. I was 9, I didn't know any better. And I only found out years later how much she went through, both to raise me on my own. And even then, like, he was always the hero, but she had to be the disciplinarian. And like, so, but I learned it as it went on, like, especially whenever he was supposed to say, pick me up on a Sunday to go to watch a hockey game or something. And I was sitting out in the step and he wouldn't show up, and she'd come out and say, well, pal, something might've came up. She never talked bad about him the whole time.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I just went in disappointed in him. But I started realizing as I got older that really she was the one that was doing the raising of me. Like, and I think that happens a lot in households with a husband and a wife, where the husband looks like the hero and the wife does more of the work. Now, I'm not saying that's, obviously, I'm not saying that's always. I'm just saying I think it happens a lot, or it happened a lot, especially back in the day. And so, especially if it's a son, like looking up to the father, even though the mother is doing a lot of the stuff. And so, yeah, it wasn't always easy. I mean, like, I went through, like I say, as a kid, witnessing a divorce of two people that you did love
Mhm.
and wanted to see together. And this is minor, but we always had pets when I was growing up. And one time I took one of the dog's heads, and I pushed it too quick. And normally an animal would just, like, either walk away or growl or whatever, but he bit me here and I have a scar now because of that. And then we found out he had distemper, like he had something going on in his head. And so, there's like all the things that I think most kids go through. Like, I have a bump here on my head because I was playing and I jumped and hit a cement ceiling and then landed on my back in the on cement, covered in blood. They think I wasn't going to make it. Like, there were those little things, but they're obviously not like mega trials. Like, they're not mega things. I think probably the hardest things we went through is being bullied, which again, a lot of kids go through. I got bullied when I moved after my parents. So it's funny how when a divorce, it affects so many things. Like,
Yeah.
they got divorced and I was mad because my father was in my life. Then we had to move because he wanted the household, which I didn't know. Instead of letting us stay there, and then, splitting it somehow. He insisted, no matter what, that the house be sold. So he basically put us out in the street in a lot of ways, but it was because he was mad that my mother wouldn't come back with him. And so we had to move into the city in an apartment. And then I got there and I was the new kid in school. Then I got bullied. There's those kind of things. And then on top of that, because now it was a single family household, my mother would, she financially, she would, there were struggles. Like I remember one night we had old collectible coins that my grandmother had given me, and we had to use them to buy Subway supper, like Subway restaurant, get the subs for supper. And I remember one time she worked double overtime to buy me a winter jacket. And a kid at school had the same jacket, but his was older and beat up and ripped. And he took mine, left his in his place. And I went home and told her, and she had said, I know that kid's life, what he goes through. And she said, like, I know what happened in his life. And she said, so we'll find a way to buy you a new jacket. And then she had to work overtime again to buy me a new jacket. There were those challenges that you face. And then my mother got together with a man, it wasn't that long after, to be honest, my father, like maybe 2 years or a year and a half. And he moved in where we were at. And then there was the whole challenge of me not liking him because I still was adoring my father and thought he was a rock star. And I didn't like this new guy in our life. And the funny, now I respect that new guy more than anything because I realized he was coming into this household with a child that didn't view him as a father and was lashing out against him, but he just loved this woman and he wanted to be in her life. But it was like I fought with him for like ever. I fought with him for years, and like at one point I was really bugging my mother about something, and it was to do with my father. Actually, it was my father wasn't paying child support, but he owed us a whole bunch of back child support. And my mom said, if I ever get that money, I'll buy you a car. So all I heard in my head is, you're going to buy me a car. And so I kept bugging her about, where's this child support money and all this. And eventually I kind of was driving her nuts doing it. So this man that she was with grabbed me by the throat and held me up against the wall. And, I was like 16 maybe. And so there was those kind of things that I think we hide behind the scenes of homes. But at the same time, it was just, he was defending the woman he loved, and I was just a kid growing up going like, I'm just a kid. Like, this is just normal. I remember with him, I used to skip school. Like I would just stay home, and he'd be like, you should go to school. And I'd stay home and play music. I had my own room, my own phone, and I'd play music as loud as I wanted, invite girlfriends over. Like, it was just, I mean, I'm sure it was like, he was like a 30-some-year-old man. I'm sure it sucked. You know what I mean? Like to have this kid that was sort of rebelling. And then to finish the whole story off, like as far as some of the things I did, like, and again, they were childish things, but I had friends that we weren't a bad crowd. We were just a curious crowd, and just, wanted to do stuff. But we did, I mean, I got caught shoplifting twice with friends, and, like small little things too. Like one time it was 5 of us and we stole a pair of workout gloves, and we all got in trouble. It was like 5 people stole 1 pair of workout gloves. And how we got caught is we went to the local gas station to ask them to weld off the thing that held, like the thing that the store has on, so they keep track of what was stolen. We asked them, and then they clued in that we had stole them. And so we got to school, and the principal was already waiting for us. And there were things like that. But I did a couple of things that, again, just being a kid, but at the same time, they could have had severe consequences that I do kind of regret. One of them was we had these amazing neighbors that were elderly people, and I remember they had like 5 pugs, pug animals, these pugs. And one day I shot a BB gun through their window. And so like they almost had a heart attack, and the dogs are going crazy. And then I just like, I saw chaos happen after I did it. And then I just went back into my room and played video games like nothing happened. And then the police showed up and had to have a talk with me. Nobody got hurt. And honestly, with a BB gun, maybe nobody would have got hurt, but it's still like, who thinks to just shoot a gun through somebody's window? And then the other one we did, which I didn't really do, but I was still there for it, is there were 5 of us playing basketball one day. And one of my friends threw a cigarette. We were smokers back then, like real, like again, young, like 15 or something. He threw a cigarette in a garbage can, and it eventually, while we were playing basketball, we started seeing smoke come out, like it caught fire. And this is, by the way, at a school. Now it was closed. It was a weekend, but the garbage can was near the school. And he threw the cigarette butt in. And then another friend of mine, once he saw it was catching fire, he started throwing stuff on it to add more fire.
Oh.
And then another friend, it was winter. Winter was just finishing, so there was snow. He was throwing snow and water to try to put it out. And then and I just kind of kept playing basketball. So I didn't do anything wrong, but I was still guilty because I was really not doing anything to stop it. And This is the weird part. at the time, a girlfriend of mine, which was not really a relationship, but just like this girl I said was my girlfriend, she was walking by. Well, her father was the fire chief.
Mhm.
So she went home, told her father, and we left. We left and went home, just play video games while this place is burning. But anyway, it was like the garbage can was burning. It wasn't in the school. I want to clarify that. We didn't burn the school, but it was close enough to the school that the fire men went and put it out. And then the next day when we went by, there was this big like black, like a imprint of the fire like on the
Right.
side of the school. So like it was reaching the school. Now it was all brick,
Right.
but it was still probably a big deal. And so we went home, me and my cousin, who was the one that threw the butt in the first place. He didn't do anything after he threw it in, but he didn't stop it either. So him and I were playing video games, and we got a knock on the door, and I come out, and the police were there. Like, you're gonna have to come with us. So the two of us, we weren't gonna answer. We're like, what did we do? Like, well, let's climb out the back window. Like, it's funny how as kids, we're in a small town. Like, you think you're somehow gonna get away with it if you just run. But
Right.
anyway, I opened the door. My mother, by the way, worked with the police, so that wasn't a good thing
Mhm.
for her, because she was embarrassing to her. But anyway, him and I got brought down to the police station. One of the other guys, we knew his father was abusing him. So when they asked us who did it, we didn't mention him because we didn't want him to get beat up over it. And then our other friend had nothing. The guy that was trying to put it out, we didn't mention him because we're like, he was trying to put the friggin' thing out. Why should he be in trouble? So anyway, then they had us in separate rooms and they asked who did it. And I wouldn't say, but I was crying. I was in tears. And my cousin, I didn't know, he was in the other room taking all the blame. So he said, I did it. And anyway, the end result is he had to wash 5 cop cars on a Saturday. That
Uh-huh.
was a big one. And I got grounded. Like, but I did anyway. So, because again, my mother worked with them, so it was kind of embarrassing for her. She worked for the city, so she worked like the next building, and
Right.
so they would. It was more just joking, but she took it seriously. Like, they would rouse her, like, "Oh, I see your son is burning stuff down, burning buildings down, eh? That's his new thing." Anyway, but so there you go. So I don't necessarily, most of that stuff I told you wasn't really bad for me. It's
Right.
just, I guess those are the things that I just shared my childhood probably in a way I never have in a podcast in my life. But that's kind of a little bit about my life, I guess.
All
So,
right. Awesome. You were a rowdy kid.
yeah, a little bit, yeah. Like I said, we were in a small town, and I mean there were a lot of kids worse than me, like a lot of people doing a lot worse. But I think I was just a curious kid, but the curiosity sometimes got me in trouble. Like, I also started smoking when I was 12.
Okay.
I started drinking like probably around 14.
Mhm.
The first time I ever drank, I think, because I didn't know the difference in alcohol, like how it worked. And so I think I probably came close to dying from alcohol poisoning,
Oh,
because
wow.
what I did, there was Southern Comfort. I don't know if that's everywhere, but it was like this certain type of alcohol that was really heavily alcohol content. And I viewed it because my friends were there and they were drinking beer. So I watched them just like drink the beer. So I did the same with this, like, whatever 40 ounce, or it wasn't that big, but like whatever size it was. And I
Right.
just the whole thing. And then I don't remember another thing after about 5 minutes from then. And I was singing songs from bands I never heard. And they said I sang all the lyrics right. Like, I must have subconsciously heard it at some point. And one friend was like, no, you leave him on his stomach. No, oh, you turn him on his back. Like, they're like 14, right? Like, they
Right.
could have killed me by just not even knowing what to do. But yeah, I don't remember a thing until the next day. I
Oh,
woke up at home and like I was like, and that was like my first time ever drinking. But the best part about kids, the next weekend I was drinking again. I was like, that was great. I don't remember a thing. I almost died. That was great. But yeah, so I mean, I drank with my friends. I smoked. This would not be accepted anymore, and it sounds terrible now.
mhm.
But at the time when I was 12, so here's another one that I did. But again, you should admit these things. But I think the statute of limitations is up on these things. But when I was really young, my friend and I, we got some cigars from people. We didn't know what they were. Like, we didn't understand, how to smoke them or anything like that. Like, I was trying to inhale like a big cigar. Like, I didn't know anything. But anyway, one of my friends ate one. I remember that. Like, I'm like, I don't think that's what you're supposed to do with them. But he was just trying to show off. But that same friend, we went back to my house later with the last cigar and we smoked it. And we didn't know enough about cigars to know that when you put a cigar out, it doesn't necessarily go out. And so we put it out, and then we were talking, and I just left it on my bed while we're playing video games. And then I left. And then when I got home, my mom was waiting for me. And she said that when she got home, she smelled smoke. So she went up to my room, and there was a hole in my bed, like this big, from the cigar burning its way through, because it was still burning. And so what she said to me, and this is the part I said that probably isn't considered acceptable now, but this was, what would it be, the 80s? This was more acceptable then. She said, if you're going to smoke, I'd rather you smoke in front of me because I know you're doing it anyway. I'd rather you smoke in front of me in an ashtray than burn my house down. So what I'm saying is I started smoking in my house at like 12 or 13.
Wow.
And I quit at 19 or 20 and never smoked again. I found it funny because a lot of my friends whose parents said, don't you ever do that, are still smoking to this day. But
Right.
it was almost like it wasn't exciting anymore because I had done it so long and I was allowed to do it. It was almost like it wasn't taboo anymore. But still, I guarantee you, if you lined up 100 parents and asked them if it's okay to let a 12 or 13-year-old smoke,
Mhm.
they would say no.
No.
So but it was again, you probably know this too, like age-wise, it was a different time. Like
Yeah.
people smoke, this is how different it was. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. People smoked cigarettes on game shows on
Mhm.
TV back then. Like they'd have a gin, a match game, it was called. They had a gin, and one guy had a cigar, and the other guy had a cigarette, and they're smoking it on the game show. Like people smoked on planes back then. And it was like, this is the smoking section, this is the non-smoking section. What? But so what I'm saying is, I know a 13-year-old smoking seems crazy, but Drew Barrymore back then was doing pot and drinking, like it was a different time. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, so I guess I did have a kind of a different childhood, that's for sure.
Cool, cool. Looking back, what kind of advice would you give to your younger self?
Okay, so there's two answers to that because there's if I was in that mindset, but just wiser, meaning like back then, if I was in that mindset, or correct that, when I say 20, and if I had a similar mindset, I would go back to my whatever like, as I told you, different years, right? Like 7,
Yeah.
12, 9. I would go back probably and say, don't do this. Don't hang around with these people. Or when the fire starts at the school, jump in and get the butt and pull it out before the fire starts. Like I would probably make different decisions. Here's the interesting part. Now, though, I mean, ultimately, nobody got hurt. I got to clarify that.
Yeah,
So now, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't change a thing. Because if I went back and gave him advice, then it would change who I am today. Because I mean, if you believe in the butterfly effect, if I stepped on one different butterfly than I ever did, my whole life would be different today. So
totally.
I would go back and give him any advice. If I went back, I would be back and say, hey, dude, high five. You're doing great stuff. Keep doing what you're doing. And it might be weird if I was telling them that in the day that the building caught on fire, but I'm just saying I wouldn't change a thing. But if at a younger age, I would have changed all kinds of things. Oh, don't go out with that girl. Don't do this. Don't let her break your heart. Don't you break her heart. Like I would have changed all kinds of things. It would have changed who I am. But here's the thing, catch 22 is I didn't know who I was going to become. And I honestly didn't know. And actually, even in my 20s, here's the reason I probably would have made lots of changes. I wasn't happy in my 20s. So I wasn't content with who I was. I wasn't fulfilled. So of course I'd want to change stuff because I didn't know that I would get to a point where I'm at today where I love my life. Like I love the life I have. I love the work I do. I live a life with meaning. I wake up every day with a smile on my face. Not many people can say that, unfortunately. And so if I changed anything, it could change that. But when I was in my 20s, I battled hypochondria and generalized anxiety for about 4 years. So for those that don't know, hypochondria is whenever you hear about a disease, you develop the symptoms and think you have the disease. And so 4 years of that's a long time. It felt like a lifetime. I believe there's mental health issues runs in my family. Now, let's be honest, it probably runs in almost everybody's family and everybody's impacted by it. But my mother's bipolar. There's all kinds of members of my family that have battled depression. This doesn't relate to my family, but my wife battles depression every now and then, still now. She was an addict. She's in recovery now 9 years. Like through all of my life, I've been surrounded by addiction and mental health issues and challenges. And so for 4 or 5 years in my 20s, like about 4, I think, I battled both of those and it was challenging. Like it was really hard. And I think it started in my late teens, but when I really noticed it was when you're working on your own and you're living in your own apartment, it's different than when you're surrounded by family and friends and stuff. So it started, I think, before I moved across the country. But once I moved across the country, I was at the waiting rooms, walk-in clinics of doctors' offices. Quite honestly, I don't know if I missed a week in 4 years. I was there every week with a new problem. And if I read about the disease and got the symptoms and then they did all the tests and said, you don't have it, bang. Okay, well, I just found a new one. But you were wrong. It's funny how when you're in it, you don't realize, wait a minute, I can't be curing myself of all these diseases in a week's time. But yet you hear something new and you're like, because it's like you need to grapple onto one. And so I really truly thought I wasn't going to live past 25. I really believed that. And so that's a different person than a person that's now approaching 50 that loves what they do and loves the place they are in their life. So again, it's a unique question because it depends when I went back in time. If I went back when I was in my early 20s, I would have changed everything. And who knows, maybe it would have made me a different person in a different way that I would have liked still, but I would have changed everything and I wouldn't have had a second thought. Now, and I would have gone in the time machine. Now, I would love to go in a time machine and not go back to me. Meaning, I would like to go in a time machine and go back and hang out with John Lennon, or go back and meet, let's say, Shakespeare. Like I would love to go back into these epic moments in time, or I'd love to go back to the 60s and just live that culture for 5 years. I would love all those things, but I don't think if the only option of the time machine was to go and talk to my younger self, I don't think I'd get in the time machine now.
True, true, very well said.
I have a good point. You probably know this, or maybe know this, but I've asked that question 5,000 times about I use the actual time machine approach. Like if you could jump into a time machine. So here's the other catch. There's always variables like where are you at now when you say this? Like you asked me my favorite book, it could be different today than it was a year ago, right? Like things always evolve. And so that question, I would have probably answered that question different if I was asked it before I started asking everybody else. But now I have the hindsight of knowing the majority of people feel the same way as me. If they're happy with what their spot in life, they wouldn't change a thing, or they wouldn't get in the time machine. So it's interesting because I'm also speaking from the perspective of somebody that's seen that all the other people that he interviews that have done really well, that are fulfilled, that are impacting a lot of lives, also wouldn't get in the time machine. So if there's strength in numbers, it makes me feel like this is the decision I would make. But at the same time, it's a decision a lot of thought leaders would make, a lot of people that have impacted a lot of lives would make, and a lot of people that are fulfilled would make. So it also validates my decision to say, yeah, that's the right decision. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Totally agree with you. Yeah, because if we were made different choices, wouldn't be where we are today, and any avenue could have led us to a different direction. So from that perspective, yeah, we are happy with where we are. We shouldn't really change anything. If you were able to, I call it, go back to the time when your parents split up, what would you tell your mom, and what would you tell single parents who are raising kids alone? What kind of advice would you want to give them?
So I would give this advice based on me hearing this advice, or at least this statement as a speaker myself. So I would go out and do talks over the years and say, like one of my talks is what I learned about customer service from my single mother. Mm-hmm. Like I would, because of that, because meaning I shared her story a lot in my talks. I've had a lot of mothers come up afterwards and say, thank you so much for sharing that story, because it's so cool to see how close you are with your mother now and how much you respect what she did, because you said early on you didn't, and you did all this stuff to her you shouldn't have. Well, they said, now it gives me hope that my child will see that I'm trying to do right by them when they get older. And so what I would probably say to my mother, knowing that, is I would probably say, even though it feels like I don't appreciate it now, I will. So again, I would say, don't change a thing. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep, getting mad at him if you have to. Keep, grounding him. I didn't get grounded often, but keep grounding him if you have to. One time I said the F off to her. I said the F word, and my mother isn't really now. I mean, I know she's not that big. She's like smaller than me, but at the time I was still a kid. Anyway, I ran into the bathroom. I think I was 15 or 16, and closed and locked the door, and she kicked the door in. And basically she didn't hit me, but she just kind of let me know that wasn't cool and that wasn't going to happen again. And so I would tell her to do that again, if you know what I mean. Like I would say, do all the things that you did. The one thing with my mother, though, that was the opposite of everything I said, is she was very much, I guess you'd use the word liberal. Like she was very much learn from your experiences, learn from what you do. Like very much, she wouldn't, here's part of the thing. The reason I think she didn't tell me not to do stuff like, whenever I didn't want to go to school, my mother quit school in grade 10. And then she went back and got her GED, and then she went to secretarial, and that's how she got her career. But because she quit school in grade 10, she felt she shouldn't tell me not to skip school if I wanted to, because she felt, well, how do I quit school? How can I tell him to not go if he's not feeling good one day? Mm-hmm. And I think she had the view that I have now is if it's an off day, take the day off. I think even intuitively, kids that are 5 know when they're having an off day. And I know the school system would say force them to go, but I'm just saying I get now, like I think she was doing the right thing by saying he doesn't do it all the time. So if there's every now and then a day he doesn't want to go and he's really fighting it, The universe is saying, he doesn't want to go today. Just don't force him. So she did those kind of things, which I really appreciate. She even wrote notes for me sometimes to say, yeah, he's not feeling the best today, or whatever. I think in high school, you brought the note after you missed,
Right.
whereas in school, junior high and that, like, or elementary, you have to call in and say the kid's not going. But high school, they don't care. Like, I don't care what happened to that kid. The next day you have to go with a note to say, here's why I wasn't here. So she would write the note for me. This is the other bad one, but again, it was a different time. She would write notes whenever I was like, I think I was 15, about to turn 16, whenever they changed the smoking age. And she would write notes saying he's coming to pick up cigarettes for me. Like, because she's like, I don't feel like going to the store to buy them for you, so I'll just send the note. But honestly, I have to say, back then it was really, I didn't do this, but I had friends that were 6 and their parents would write them the note to go pick up a pack of cigarettes, and kids could do it then. Like, first of all, the kids shouldn't be walking out the street at 6 anyway by themselves. But they were not only walking at age 6, they were taking a parent's note to go buy a pack of cigarettes that they were then carrying back to the parents. It was just a different, and again, that it was a different, we didn't wear seatbelts, right? It was a different time. We didn't wear helmets to do anything. Like, it was a totally different time. But my mom, like that, she did those kind of things. And she never said to me, I was not very, full disclosure, I didn't really get into drugs at all that much. But she would have never said to me, don't smoke pot. Like, she just wouldn't have said that. It wasn't in her vocabulary. And same thing with drinking. We had times, again, there were a few times she said, bring your friends over. I'd rather them here than out driving. And so I'm just saying it was a different approach that she had to parenting. And it was very much not like authoritarian unless she had to be. But I knew not to mess with her. So I knew what not to push. But at the same time, she did let me get away with a lot more than most of my friends. And so again, I don't think I would change that, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think I would change a thing on that, because I think, again, it allowed me to not feel I was missing out on anything. So then I didn't feel like I had to fight to do something or break rules to do something. And even the things I told you about earlier, like the stealing of, like, shoplifting and the fire hazard day and all that other stuff, she really wasn't like, she really didn't ground me. Like, she just kind of, I knew I did wrong, and I knew that, it might have been like a week, you can't go out with your friends after school or whatever. It was like, but it wasn't like, you're never talking to people again. I had friends that was their parents were like, the one that she was the most upset with, really upset, was the BB gun through the window of the old people. She didn't really like that because she loved those old people, and she just didn't think that was cool. So yeah, I think I would give her the advice to, like I said, just keep on keeping on. Like, and I will say, one thing, give me another example. One thing she did as a parent that changed me at my core. And I think it's the one thing that sort of straightened me up from, I wasn't going down a bad path, but I was just, like I said, just like the kid that was just doing this stuff. And what I did for a while, again, as a smoker, she was giving me, here's the other thing. She was giving me, now I think it's crazy, like $10 a day to go to school. $5 for lunch and $5 for my 20 pack of cigarettes. She was giving me $10 a day. And then on the weekend, I would, oh, Mom, I need to go to the pool hall. And I get another 20. So, but now I look at it, I'm like, holy crap. Like, back then, this is in the early 90s. She was giving me like $300 or $400 a month. That's like $5,000 a year. When you get out and you're working, you're allowed a basic income of $6,000 without being taxed. I was getting almost that for doing nothing. And here's the thing. Every now and then I felt like I needed more. So here's what I started doing, which is terrible. Is I would wait until it was late at night, and I knew that she always had $20 bills in her purse, in her top of her wallet. So I was starting to zip open her purse and take a $20 bill. And I got away with it for probably a month. And then one day I felt a hand on my hand in the middle of the night, and it was her boyfriend, the guy that I didn't get along with anyway. And anyway, so she got up, and the bottom line is, she said, I'm not going to ground you. I just know that I can never trust you again. And then she went back to sleep. And that, like, haunted me forever. Like, it haunted me for like weeks. And and I don't remember now at that point if she said, I'm not giving you any money for lunch or anything. I don't know if she did that, or she just said, I can't trust you anymore. Either way, that changed everything. Like, I never tried to take money again, to the point where, like, somebody that I didn't know could have come over to visit her and left $1,000 on the table, and I would have never even sniffed it. Like, it changed me that much in that area. And I don't know the timeline to know if that's what changed me on everything, but I just know that changed me on the trustworthy side. Like, it changed everything. It's funny how, if she would have said, you're grounded forever, or hit me or whatever, I would have totally rebelled. But by her saying, I just know I can never trust you again, and I'm disappointed in you. I never thought you would do this. And then just went back to bed. And I was just like, this is like a horror movie. I was haunted. Like I couldn't sleep and couldn't function at school. I don't know if it was that bad, but
Wow.
it just messed with me is the best way I can say it. Anyway, so yeah. So there you go. That's the advice I would give my mom is don't change anything.
Awesome. Awesome. What do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
Let me think. I I feel like I want to say, so the first instinct is usually what I think I should go with. I feel like the first instinct that I want to say is responsibility, like to teach them how to be responsible. Now, again, it's how you do it is probably the key thing. Like there's ways you can do it where you say you're grounded and you're going to do this because you didn't do this. That's one way. Another way is to say, if you want this, why don't you earn it? And let me show you how to do that. And I think that's the kind I think about. Like, for example, if you want a car and you're willing to do the work, know that you're going to have to pay the insurance and gas, and you're going to have to get maybe a part-time job or something. What I'll do is if you can raise half the money, I don't care if you do it mowing lawns, whatever, then I'll pay the other half. Like stuff like that, I think is giving them responsibility. My mother, like I said, when I turned 16, it wasn't just by the way that she cut off the money. She also, I had to start doing my own laundry, which, I'm still not a huge fan of it, and I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of skill to it, meaning like I learned how to separate the darks and the whites. But at 16, I can tell you most of my friends had no clue, like till they were 20. Some of them probably 25 and 30 didn't know how to do laundry. So, and wash my own dishes. Like stuff like that didn't even occur. Like it was so weird to me. It went night to day, right? It went like the day before she was doing my laundry. It was almost like this is how it felt to me. It was almost like she started the wash, and then it was like you turned 16, you got your own job, you got a car now, you finish it, you dry it. It was almost like I know it wasn't that dramatic, like that much of a switch over. Like she only did half the wash and left me to finish, and then I was on my own. But that's what it felt like. But the responsibility side is she just basically taught me that if you want things in life, you're going to have to do stuff for them. And I think that's really powerful. And I'm going to say this on two fronts. One, I don't think all kids are getting that as much as they used to. Like the message about the fact that if you want something, you will probably have to work for it. I think it's hard to find anything that's your passion job at age 16 or 17 or 18 that you're going to stick with forever. And it's not even probably designed to be that way. But I think you can do a job like you actually care before you find the passion job. But I also think there's something to be said for how long it takes to get there. Meaning like, I see people now that they're like, they get out of school and they're like, go to the job and they'll ask in the interview, what do you want to be? Well, honestly, I think I deserve probably to be the CEO by next Tuesday. And if I'm not, I'm probably not going to work here, or I'll leave after that next Tuesday if you don't make me the CEO. Like, I think there's a little bit of that going on now. And I was taught the opposite of that. I was taught like, now I don't think like, again, I don't like encouraging saying do something you hate, but I think there is something to say, well, you know what? You do have to work for stuff if you want. Whatever that work looks like, that can be up for debate, but I think there is something to that. So for example, my kid, my 6-year-old, now both of my kids are very entitled. And they really feel they are, like they try to push that really hard. And like my son, he got like $100 over like the course of 2 years from different gifts and stuff like that. And then one day he took out the money and he goes like this, and he said, "Time to make it rain." He's like 6, right? Like, and I said, "Why are you doing that?" He goes, "Because I got more money than all my friends." Like he's got this mindset, like everything should be. And then we get something from Amazon at the door, like a book we ordered of a friend's, and he's like, "Can you order me?" And he thinks it should be there that day. Like, where's my video game? Like it's a different world now. And what I'm getting at is that the way it could look now, he wants a YouTube channel when he turns a certain age. And he hasn't forgot that, by the way. We thought he started at age 3. And we thought, okay, he'll give it up. So we'll put like age 8. Nope. He counts down the days. Like one more day. Like he's just like he's on it. And so, but my point is the working to get something could be, well, since you love this YouTube channel, you want to do this, we want you to be consistent with it. And, and basically there's ways you can make money from a YouTube channel, which he knows. I don't know how he gets this. He's like 6, about to turn 7. And he's like, "Did you know Ryan's worth $100 million? Like he knows the actual numbers. He said, "Did you know Mr. Beast gives away $10,000 every episode, and he has like 160 million subscribers. And then if he does this, he gets an extra 50 subscribe. Like he knows all the numbers. So like he's probably going to be really good at it. But my point is the working for him at that age, I'm not saying work. Like we're not going to, we're not like farming him out to get him to work. I don't care if he does it, but I'm just saying if he's saying I want to earn this and that, well, why not teach him that if he has a YouTube channel, just some of the nuances about being consistent, sharing stuff that makes you laugh because it'll probably make somebody else laugh. Like just teach him a bit about it, but without him realizing it, he's also sort of learning about responsibility, learning about work. I know some people don't like it because they look at it like almost like the child actors and abusing that. But if we're not doing it to make money from it and we don't care what he does with it, I think we can still teach him about responsibility, consistency. If he's going to do it, show up and do it. If he wants us to do something, he has to do something. Like I think you can teach a kid using any kind of practice. Same with sports. Like I think there's a lot, we overlook a lot of times, like how the sports and the military has taught people, the discipline and responsibility and all those things. Or sea cadets, when I was growing up, they called it, they still call it that. I think scouts and all that, like things for kids that are younger, that you go out and make fires in the woods, and not fires like I did with the garbage can, but actual fires with people watching. Like I think you get your badges from doing those things. Like I think those things are very valuable for kids to learn from. So again, I know that was a long tangent to say responsibility, but I think I would say that responsibility is the one thing I think parents can impart in their child, and it'll help them and serve them throughout their life.
Yeah, totally. And I just went last weekend with my son to do that. It's called the Cub Scouting. First time ever I did camping and sleeping in the tent under the stars.
Oh my gosh, that's
amazing. It was a lot of fun.
Was it? That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, how did your childhood, I guess, and growing up in a single parent household influenced your personal and professional life?
I feel like there's things that I do that I don't think I would have done had I had siblings. Like there's I think there's a couple areas. Like one, I'm very A-okay with being alone, meaning like you could lock me in a house for a month and wouldn't bother me a bit. But some people would go crazy. Now, where I would have a harder time is if you said like you emptied the house and then it was an empty house for a month. That would be a little tougher. But if it was like, if I could play guitar, if I can write music, if I can write in a journal, like if I can do stuff. And so I wouldn't need TV. TV would be a bonus, but I could survive and do all those things. And I think that was from being an only child, because I had lots of solitude moments, like lots of moments where I was off on my own doing stuff. And I had to learn to play by myself, which is not, I think it's a skill almost, to learn to play by yourself. Where I learned to be a part of a team was with my cousins. I had a lot of family, like a lot of cousins and stuff, and my friends. And we played things like road hockey, where again, I think you learn to be a part of a team. Like you got 4 or 5 people on a team. It was road hockey, so it was a ball, but shooting the ball to each other, you learn to rely on people. So I still learned teamwork, but I think, if you think about it, like being an only child, like you're the CEO of the house other than the parents. So like I think being an entrepreneur came more natural because I was an only child. Like I was okay starting a business on my own, doing things on my own. I'm okay with being responsible and the person where the puck stops, if you want to say it that way. I'm okay with those things, I think, because of that. Also, and this you could argue whether it was from learning from my mom or whether it was because I was an only child. And you also could argue that it's not a good trait, but I multitask a lot. But I'm really, the biggest thing people say is, somebody told me I should write a book about your ability to get SHIT done. And so they said you should actually get a book called Get SHIT done. But basically, I can get, it seems like I can output 3 times more than other people.
So what else are you doing now? Besides being on an interview with me, what else are you doing now?
I have my leg on the desk, like my leg up on the desk. I can't just sit down straight up. So that's one thing. I'm holding a remote on my other hand, but I mean, I'm not multitasking, like I'm not distracted. That's the difference. But I think with multitasking, the reason it's viewed as bad is because mostly people are distracted. Like they're actually doing two things at once, or they're thinking about one and doing the other one. What I mean is just that I can shift from one thing to another like that and make a clean shift. Like I can jump into one thing and then somebody can pull me out and I got to make a decision and I can make a quick decision and I'm already over here, like as if I wasn't over there. And then I can go back to over there like that. To me, that's different because we think of multitasking. I think when people say it's bad, I think people mostly think of it as like, you're still in this zone, but now you've moved over here and it's almost like the squirrel thing, like squirrel, like that type of thing, I think is how people think of multitasking. And I will say, I think for most people, that's what multitasking is. Like, I think it is a bad thing, but I think I've somehow seemed to have been able to compartmentalize the things. And I can basically, it's almost like time blocking, but I can shift to the other time block without a break and still keep going. And so here's another thing. If I have one superpower only, it's that I have an amazing memory. So like I have a photographic memory. And because of that, I think that's what also allows me to do the shifting quickly because my memory, the way it works, like I can go over here and say, I remember doing that an hour ago. And so I'm just right back in that zone. So what I'm saying about that is I don't think it's natural to multitask and I don't think it's a good thing. And I will even say, go so far as to say, I probably shouldn't be doing it, but I think I do it well. And I don't brag about how much I do well, but I think I do that well. And then at the same time, when I say about that with the memory, like anybody that works with me will say, how does this dude remember this stuff? Like I remember like stuff we did. Remember when we were at the event 2 years ago at MIT and so said this, and then you said this. They're like, how do you remember that stuff? And then like, or it could be an email. Remember the email so-and-so sent us? And they're like, because if it was just so-and-so said, you might think Corey doesn't, he's just guessing that, or he just thinks he remembers that. But it'll be like, remember so-and-so sent an email. And they're like, I got to go check that email. And they're like, that's exactly what they said. Like, I remember those kind of things, like an email from 2 years ago. Like, I don't understand that, but I don't fight it. It's a good quality to have, especially as an interviewer. So when I can go do an interview with, say, Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup, and I can remember stuff Jack told me 3 interviews ago and tell him what he said when he said it, that's powerful because I can say, Jack, last time you told me about this. What I'm wondering is, since that time, has that changed? Well, that's great for an interview, or just even remember names, or the fact that I can remember who I'm talking to, like that they did this in their career. Whereas some people get on interviews and they have to have like 10 questions in front of them because they won't remember that, right? And there's no judgment. That's my superpower. Somebody else's superpower is math. Like they can crunch numbers and make everything make sense. That's not my superpower. So I think, again, those are some of the things I think being raised as a single child or an only child, sorry. Those are some of the things that served me in business. I think compassion, like I told you, my mother telling us that we could get another jacket rather than go back and get our jacket, which I wanted to do, that she had bought me. Pets, we always had pets around my whole life. We have a dog and 2 cats now. But I've always had pets. Even when I couldn't have a dog because I traveled too much, I had 2 cats and I'd have neighbors watch them when I was traveling. Or I drive them over to my mother's place. Like I lived 3 hours away and I drive them to her place and they'd stay there for 5 weeks. And they get to know her pets and she's a animal lover, so it still worked out. But what I'm getting at is I think even being an animal person and the compassion she showed me at different times, I think makes me more compassionate in business as an entrepreneur because I care about other people's results. I care about what they care about. Like I think those type of things all have served me. And again, I'm kind of reaching into what ones I think like these are the ones that I think came from being an only child. And there's probably many more, but I think those are some of the big ones. I think the biggest of all those is being an entrepreneur is a lonely career some of the time. And you can, if you're worried about being lonely, or maybe you work better because you have certain skills, feel like Liam Neeson, if he is saying that you have certain skills that other people don't have and I can make you disappear or whatever. But if you have certain skills and somebody else has certain skills, maybe it's a partnership and then you're not as lonely as an entrepreneur. But for me, my first business ever was a partnership. It was only like 3 or 4 months. And since then, it's always been solopreneur. And because of that, I think I play well that way because I was an only child. Because entrepreneurship is a lonely job. And I think a lot of people go back to the work world because it's so lonely. But for me, to me, it's solitude. It's like, oh, well, this is just my peace. Like, in other words, I'm around people, I'm doing stuff, and then so that's a part of my character that a lot of people probably don't know. And I think there's a lot of us that are introverted extroverts. So I'm like that. So in other words, we go to an event, let's say at Columbia University. And for 2 days, I'm immersed with people, talking, like social, everybody, okay, come out for supper with us, go out for supper, all that. As soon as I get back to the hotel, a lot of the other people like, let's go up to the bar. And I'm like, see ya. Like I'm that person that, and if I do talks, like when I used to do 200 talks a year for other companies, every other speaker was like, let's go out and party with the organizers and then we'll build better relationships. And there's two aspects. Me, I needed that downtime. So I would say, okay, see you later. Have a good night. The other side of it is I also realize more is less is more. So I also always worried about you go out and you drink with the organizer and you say something they don't like religiously or politics, and then all of a sudden they hate you, and you got to do another talk for them the next day. I was just always thinking that could go sour. And at the same time, I'd rather solitude. So when I go do talks, I almost never went out for clients for supper or anything like that. And the only times it would happen is really whenever it would be like, they would kind of ask, can you, like, so I play guitar, so they would say, can you play some music the night after we do the event? Like, can you come to the restaurant and play some music? And then I didn't mind because mostly I wasn't talking to them. I was playing the music at the front. But I say all this to say, I think that comes from being an only child as well, is I need that solitude. And that's why I say an introverted extrovert. So I like being social. I like all those things, but then I need to refill. Like some people don't. Some people refill, like I find some people, like it's like they have a chargeable battery. So like they refill as they're doing it. Like I have a really good friend, Rosalind Fung. And Rosalind, I think, recharges as she's socializing. Like she's like, I just want to be around and socialize. Me, I deplete the battery throughout the day socializing, and then I need to go to the hotel and recharge again before I go back out into the world.
I totally can relate to that. And I met Rosalind. Yeah, she's like a firecracker.
She is, totally is. And like I said, I think she would tell you what I just said. I think she would tell you that she totally needs or totally feeds off the social. Like she could be around the social more often than I can, that's for sure.
Yeah. Cool. I love what you said about, multitasking. And I guess because you have the photographic memory and you don't need to slide in, like when a lot of time when we focus on something and takes us time then to refocus and get into that same flow state, and you don't have that. You can just have a clean slate, like from one to another. And that's awesome.
Yeah,
And
I think it's pretty well.
yeah. And you answered my question, your superpower, your photographic memory, because I do ask that as well. That's incredible.
Yeah, I think the other one is I used to joke and say that I should have a P on my chest, like Superman has the S, and then I could walk around, rip up the shirt and have the P on my chest, and that's for passion and purpose. I think the other thing, and I don't know, the reason I didn't say it is I don't know if you can say it's a superpower, but once I found my purpose, I say that I take vitamin P every day, which is for purpose. And basically, it's like the vitamin you can't buy in the store, but the most important one you'll ever take. And what that does is it's like every day, like I feel like $1 million because of the fact that I do what I love. And I don't really think you can call that a superpower, but I think now it's a superpower. Like it was not when I was born with.
Right.
But it's that I uncovered, I guess. So it's like the superpower, like the one that by superpower, the photographic memory, that one was at birth. So like Superman, Superman was Superman at birth. The other one is like Batman, where I kind of discovered it eventually. Like the purpose one. It's like I eventually put on the cape and said, "Now I'm Purpose Man." Like I whatever that is. I think so. They're both superpowers, but one was like I was born with. The other one is like I had to eventually discover like I got bitten by the spider and became Spider-Man.
So how did you find your purpose?
I jokingly say where it started. So I believe we all have it. So I used to use I used to say find my purpose. Now I say uncover it, because I think it's like an onion. We all have it. I think we just have to peel more layers. And so for me, what I tell people is you have to figure out what you think you'd like to do and start taking action and doing those things and be adventurous with those and step outside your comfort zone. So for me, that part of it started with being tricked into performing stand-up comedy one night. And so I performed stand-up comedy. I bombed, as they call it in comedy. Like I got no laughs at all. I went back week after week getting no laughs for a year and a half. But the day after my first night, the next day I was at the office and people were like, "Did you meet someone last night? You just have a different feel about you, you have different aura." And that was my hint. And what it was is I had finally found a passion. And passion to me is what you do. Purpose is why you're actually doing it. So to me, your passion can change over and over again. And it did for me. So like stand-up comedy started it. Then that led to public speaking or professional speaking. Then that led to podcasting. Then that led to writing books. And it kept leading to new things. And most of them I can still do to this day. The comedy and music I mentioned earlier, those two things I've pushed to the side for now. I won't say I won't get back to them, but the other ones I keep doing. They're all kind of interrelated, but they're also all separate. But those are all different whats, like what I'm doing. Just like somebody taking pictures, photography could be a what. The why you're doing it is the bigger one. But what I've experienced is for most people, you can't jump to the why without the what. So not to get too, technical, but you basically have to, my experience is you have to find out what you love doing and then start doing it. And then eventually the why reveals itself. So how I found my purpose was being tricked into performing stand-up comedy, finding that was a what, like what I wanted to do. Did that for a while, discovered speaking, did that for a while. And then as I did all the stuff, it was like probably into 4 years. Eventually I'm like, this is why I'm doing it. Like it came eventually. It wasn't like I discovered it right away or found it right away. It was like eventually it revealed itself. It was like, oh, and I think how it happened in a lot of ways was people what they said to me about what I was doing for them. Meaning like I would get a message saying, that day you came into my school and did that talk, which I never met this person, you gave me a kick in the butt that made me realize I want to go to college. And now I run 5 rental car company. Like I'm a general manager of a rental car company. And I wouldn't have done that if you wouldn't have given me the kick in the butt I needed. So you get some of those messages coming to you privately on LinkedIn or what have you. And I feel that's when you start discovering your why or your purpose. Like eventually, so for me, I say my mission statement is to be the guy that motivates, donates, educates, entertains, and inspires. And so that to me allows me to deliver on my purpose. And my purpose, I feel, is to create a positive ripple, whether invisible or visible impact, but a positive ripple in the lives of everybody or almost everybody that I meet. And I feel I discovered that because of all those years of working at my craft or my passion.
Mhm. I love that. That's incredible. And I don't know who said it, but the why is what happens when in other people because of what you do.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I love your passion and your purpose. How did your the Enlightened Passenger book came to being? What kind of started that?
Yeah, I mean that's also a great question because the book itself, in a lot of ways, a lot of what we're talking about is kind of buried within the book. It's so first of all, it's a fictional parable. So for those that have maybe heard of books like The Alchemist or The Celestine Prophecy or The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari or The Richest Man in Babylon, it's that type of book. And basically, I try to not to say too much because there's some shocks and twists in the book, so I don't want to give anything away. But I'll just say one of the questions I asked, basically, it triggered or is the catalyst for the book. Meaning, like, what about, it was kind of like it gave me the idea, like, what this would be a cool concept. And then I sat with it for a year, just with the idea, and knew what I wanted the beginning and end to be, but nothing else. And then I went to a cottage for 2 weeks with the family. I'm not a swimmer, even though I live in an island. The other 3 are. So my wife actually suggested, why don't you start writing that book? That you love doing it. It's part like you're on vacation, so do what you want to do, love to do. So I wrote half the book on that vacation, and then I tinkered away with it for another year until I was finally done. So like over half was done then, and it took me the rest of the year to do the other just half. But the book itself, there were a lot of how did this happen parts of the book, like why did I set it on a plane? And that was because I knew I wanted it to be 2 people having a conversation. And I just had to figure out where they're having the conversation. And as I was flying over and over again, eventually one day it occurred to me, like, why wouldn't I have it on a flight? I'm always flying. And so but then that triggered the title, which was The Enlightened Passenger. The idea there was, then it made me start to go, this would be kind of cool because now it'll make people wonder who is really the passenger. Because there's two strangers on a plane. So it could be either of those strangers, that's the passenger, or it could be you who gives the book to somebody else, because now you're the enlightened passenger because you're transporting it to somebody else. I wanted it to be like that, and I felt a plane would allow that. So that's why the plane. The story is basically 2 strangers, a young guy, old guy. Young guy's Robert, old guy's Trevor or Treb. The young guy is like an arrogant, cocky business person who thinks he kind of knows it all, doesn't believe in personal development, all that stuff. And he makes good money, but he spends good money all at the same time. And he meets this old guy, gets bumped up to first class, sitting next to him, even though he checked in to make sure there wouldn't be anybody sitting next to him. And he doesn't want to talk to the old guy. He just wants to sleep. But he figures out the old guy's made some money. And now he wants to know how the old guy made that money. Because he knew the old guy has saved his money and he's far wealthier than Robert. So he wants to know that. But what ends up happening through the flight is the older guy teaches the younger guy 10 life lessons. And it's called The Flight That Changes Everything, because he helps show him it's not just about being rich in money. It's about being rich as a person and then what you can do with the abundance you do have. And so that's kind of the premise behind it. And I did discover after I wrote it, I didn't realize at the time I was writing it, that I'm really both of the passengers. So like I was that, not arrogant, but I was that business guy that thought I knew it all. And also I'm a bit of Treb, that guy that now has traveled this big journey, got to interview all these thought leaders, learn all the things I have, and now hopefully sharing them with others. I will say it's loosely based on my life as well. So I've interviewed 7,500 thought leaders. And in the book, when it says, for example, Treb is backstage, he learned this lesson backstage with Les Brown, the legendary speaker. And he talks about how Les said, when they were talking about synchronicity, that synchronicity is God's way of saying anonymous. Well, Les said that to me in his living room in Atlanta, but I take it as Treb learned it from Les, because Treb's technically me, right? Gina, who Treb talks about, his wife, is really my common law wife. Like most of it was, it's really her. And, I go so far in the book, like James Redfield, who wrote Celestine Prophecy, I've worked together with him on a few things. Well, in the book, Treb sits next to James on a plane without knowing who he is, and then learns a bit about synchronicity from James. So that's really like me sitting at his feet, learning from him at his home. It's me now saying that's how Treb learned it. So again, if you read the book, you'll start to like, you might not know it, but I'm telling you now, like when you read it, it's loosely based on my life. One thing you heard about is me playing comedy and playing music. Well, Treb, of course, has tried stand-up comedy. Treb got to play music at the Cavern Club in Liverpool, and he also has a tattoo of John Lennon on his forearm that he got in Liverpool. No surprise, I played at the Cavern Club where the Beatles played, and I got that tattoo when I was in Liverpool. So like when you read into it, it's really my life that I turned into a fictional story in a lot of ways. But that's how the book came about. And the hope is that with the book is that people realize that we keep growing and learning, and there's always room to keep growing and learning. And I also hope these 10 lessons serve people well, because it took me so many thousands of hours to learn them. And I sat with it before I finalized and said, this is the final 10 lessons. I asked, if I was sitting alone with my kids for 24 hours and could only teach them 10 things, what are the 10 things I need to teach them from what I've learned? And so I really put a lot of thought into these 10 lessons. And so my hope is one or all of these lessons can transform a person's life. So that's a book in a nutshell.
Awesome. I love it. And I can't wait to read it. If people would like to, connect with you, read your books, learn more about you, where would they go?
So on the book side, I think the best place to go is thisisthebook.com. So pretty easy to remember. Thisisthebook.com. If you go there, the reason I send people there is you can buy the book on most retailers, but the reason I would send you there is we have a bunch of cool bonuses, including 5 instant bonuses that come with the book. If you go pre-order it there, then you get those bonuses. If you go to the retailer, you don't. I mean, it's as simple as that. But you still pay the same price. Nothing changes except for you don't get the bonuses. So if you go through our website, basically you scroll down, it has 3 steps. The first step is go buy the book, and it has the link. So you don't even have to go search it. You click the link, you go there. When you order it, you'll get an order number, of course. You come back to the website, you put the order number in, you get the bonuses. So that's where I would send people, because I think if you can get bonuses, why wouldn't you want to? And so that's that side. As far as anything beyond that, like, first of all, when you do that, you get into our community by grabbing the bonuses. So you'll see the ways to connect with me, because I don't want to give people like 10 links, because they say a confused mind does nothing. And so I don't want to give people 10 links. So I will just say that website is where to get details on the book, learn a bit about me. But if you really want to bypass that and you just have a question you want to ask or you want to reach out, I'm not going to do this much longer, but for now I'm still doing it. You can send me an email. I'll give you my email address. It's Corey, Corey, at Blue, BLU, Talks, TALKS, bluetalks.com. So Corey at bluetalks.com, blue without the E. Send me an email there. Say you heard me on here. And if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to send them that way. We're switching over to that email address from my Gmail one. And as I switch over, I'm not bombarded with emails yet. So I've been doing this, but I'm not going to keep doing this because I know over time, if I keep giving the email out, I know at some point I'm going to regret it. So take advantage of it now, reach out because I'm giving it out. I remember Tim Ferriss, who wrote the 4-Hour Workweek. I remember he had his email in the back of the book. He used to give it on every show. And then eventually when you send to that email now, it's like, sorry, Tim's no longer here. Because I think what happened is Tim realized this is getting intense. Now, he didn't know probably the book was going to sell millions of copies. But if you think about it, if you sell millions of copies and let's say hundreds of thousands read it, because as we know, not everybody finishes the book, but that could mean he got 10,000 emails from that book. There's a point where you're going, what was I thinking? But my point is that's why I won't do it long. But still, if you hear this show, send me an email if you'd like, or go to thisisthebook.com and grab the book. And we'd love to have you in our community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
No, you've got stuff out of me that I quite honestly don't think I've shared many of these things in shows over the years, but little like one snippet, but I've never shared everything I just shared with you all at once. And I bet you there's 2 or 3 things I said there that I've never shared on a podcast. So I think it's like when you go to the store and you go to buy 5 things, you leave with 100. I think the audience is going to leave with 100 things that I've never shared before. So I think you pulled out as much as anybody has. So yeah, I think, and we covered so much ground, like what I would teach people. Like I talked about having a personal mission statement, which I talk about sometimes. We talked about finding your purpose and how to do it. Like, yeah, we covered so much of what I like to share with people. So yeah, I think we're good.
All right, awesome. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your journey, your wisdom, and your lessons.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.